Hello, black pupils. There's a difference between groupthink, maintenance to groupthink, and use slash of that, and or the difference of that. And we would quickly understand what that meant, how we appreciate it, or how the breaching method assigned black and white to communicate other than they communicate. For example, where, why, and how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. Right, where, and how we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. See, nature communicates about difference, tactical ulterior, from formal identities of logic and of natures of debate, which was employed by a breaching method, which is one of the things our founders communicated for us to blame slavery on. We still have it blamed on our founders because we still have roles with criminally foreign influence psychiatry and psychology and descriptions of logic natures. Doctors still tactically delusions are out. I'm not even a doctor of psychiatry. They're putting fake conversations in databases. There's still roles with child offenders and with ones who are adults who were abused when they were kids. They're putting intelligence positions where they have readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, gives themselves the benefits of the doubt at the last section, where they know those locations were and are used originally and still. Increasingly put fake things in databases, cover what came first, hide and blame on or blame on other things other than themselves, the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. Even when they know who killed someone, they're going through courts to have rules of predicate acts with facts with those crime scenes, and adding additionally hyper additionally roles with those actual facts used for lies too. Oh, but that's just because and fake motivations planting. Then they need to hide that at the prisons, who are also were with the. Sometimes it's the prison's family members, the people out of their offices, state corrections offices of Connecticut, people next to it, the conjunctions or adjacent to it. Those differences. This employed each age of fact nature, self-valued rules with predicate acts with facts. Right where and how integrity had means to speak but never did or does. Why and how that is maintained is recorded, but you guys have to follow mandated law. And you have to not hide why you're lying about your motivations. So we have branches of government fishing to cover up where and how they frame people and frame them on a constant basis and how they get away with it. We have to demonstrate there are delusions that are being self cultivated through our own, for the collusions with the other countries already having had them self cultivated through, and they're still doing it with their own. Russians against Russians and Americans against Americans have roles with databases oriented, putting fake things, criminally foreign influence, readings of statutes and precedents, values with syntax quality, like with regarding negotiations. Tucker Carlson has roles with names on off Fox Connecticut News, on off his campus, that are names on off my street, involved where and how the North and the South are being and haven't been used criminally foreign influenced, tactically delusions raw, communicate as tools with where and how the branches of government too, or the difference of them in the intelligence. They've been hiding lie progressions where and how their uses of them. Collusions. That's collusion, blaming our founders for what they communicate to blaming the breaching method. How they had to hide who they were. And all exceptions, they had to hide their motivations for that. And then it was really led up to them getting off, telling us to get the Constitution unabridged. And the value of why and how we have rights that are too numerous to list stood. See, the truth that we need a lawyer for a bunch of reasons. to defend ourselves, that is used for lies. We're in how roles with torture, extortion, slavery. They never went away. We're going to address this with the branch of government. How they were originally still, so they can't afford us to have discerned what they were originally capable of being discerned part with. They haven't been a part with. See a bunch of child abused people who had other things, others ourselves, than the breaching method blamed. You were forced, tricked, certain to persuaded to blame other things, others ourselves, like our founders, for what caused things like slavery. You were forced, tricked, certain, persuaded to pretend there was a nature of bravery associated with protesting tea taxes that wasn't even existent. Our founders had to counter extort the other founders. And that was only made possible because there was Native Americans still doing damage control for the species volume science, which is hyper native pure. That's what the existence of Native Americans demonstrates. There's a breaching method that has our names A through Z, all natural differences, assigned to keep other things other than yourselves blamed for why and how. The grounds, its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. The waters, they are now being used by and through systems tactical ulterior from that one which is hypernative. And the ones that are the Native American voices individually grouped in together, they're recorded being tortured, extorted, in fact, human nature enslaved to self-value roles with definitions of success and or of failure and or of the difference of that uses. That can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to track. Short words with convictions proper regarding how they had to entertain readings of statutes. Part of how they had to entertain it is part of how Native Americans had to counter extort their own, too. Because everyone's fighting now with factual nature, quality aspects of nature relative to the possession of questions, the possession of all identities of relativity, plural. Now with a singular breaching method uses of it, a singular identity of breaching method use of it as a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. Because there are means to discern time-conscious uses of the difference between overt criminal enterprises, adults, and families per them, as defined by themselves and by the branches of government distinctly, but also non-distinctly. And like when they use the name of America, there's a nature of debate, quality aspects of debate that are reliant upon descriptions of America that are tactically wrong while pretending other. All exceptions, the exception nature used to pretend not to realize this. It's relative to why and to how they have people with the last name Adams involved on Facebook and YouTube with Weathersfield Police. A whole bunch of people tied to Joshua Julian involved along Route 175. And people who spread lies about me to my family and to people who know them as people I caught with the child defender principal and the police chief and 1 years ago. Involved also where they used to live before they moved into that house with reportedly a girlfriend of a police chief years ago. Or more. See, this did just speak of the devil. Ron Adams is one of the ones who was planting evidences with the police, changing evidences, making things In other words, also hiding sequence shifts as collusions with them leaking too. Ron Adams has roles with Weathersfield Police, FBI leaking their roles. These are people involved. He doesn't even know all of it. But more with the principal upskirt nature. On Twitter, too, they have more upskirt pictures still. Ron Adams keeps, I told him 50,000 times I was not a doctor. He's trying to plant evidences. He has people involved with digital crimes of the police and child offenders. And there's Officer Powers and other ones he mentioned, Ron Adams. These are police forms that have been putting fake transcripts with WTNH. They put fake conversations with me and others. They changed the conversations with them, with people with the World Trade Center attack. Context: we were I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers right before the attack and the night before. Shortly before that, and long term before that, that was in Manhattan, New York. People from Connecticut intercities who'd been planting things fake in databases took collusions with and as names with their extended family members too, and people on all sides in criminal and civil cases, including in that case there, attached to faked and changed words and roles with predicate acts with that, like on off Central Connecticut State University has roles with names on off all sides of the World Trade Center and the World Trade Center, and their roles with judges and prosecutors, uses of investigators in their campuses, in their homes, in corners of the streets, of people that live near them, employments at the campuses, abuses of their kids to make them self-body roles with abuses of others' kids, right where they're abused too, to make it appear like motivations were other, where motivations propagation is maintained self-cultivated. So note how there is a distinction between John Adams and John Quincy Adams, too, because there's a distinction between our founders and our presidents that is maintained, used to measure and maintain. Other communicated for our founders than they communicated, and that George Washington agreed to communicate for themselves. So Ronald Adams also has rules with doctors, foreign and domestic. I don't know if he knows the people. He implied something that implied that, but there are people at the corner of Town Line Drive and it's other corners, but Town Line Drive and Sosty Highway has rules with cyber police, foreign and domestic, people involved with the campuses, including the campus of Hartford Hospital and fire departments, and spots next to parks where they've been putting evidences crimes, also involving their own neighbors and other people's neighbors with this. So Ron Adams, why would you play games with the cops' names and with child offenders? Ron Adams, you're like a disgusting person. Why would I have any contact with you? I don't want to have anything to do with your child offenders. So Ron Adams, get the police on paper. Stop planting evidences with them. Fear God, because there are more threats on the kids recorded. You're hiding them. You're preventing me from telling on them. You're obstructing justice. Get the judges on paper with the prosecutors involved too here. Fear God. Fear. Judge Napolitano, let's get an answer, please, for these Connecticut interbranch. These are people remote uses of your Facebook page. Let me show you something. Let me show them how to think. The agencies too, their voices. I'll show them how to think. Follow my day law for them, please.